coming up. What an excellent day for Tom. Well, howdy folks, and welcome to Minute 27 of the Exorcist Minute, a show where we endeavor to examine, extrapolate, and excavate the Exorcist minute by terrifying minute. My name is Lester Clark.
And I'm Keenan Diaz.
And we'll be your holy guides on this journey through what some have called the scariest movie of all time. All right, so our minute begins with Karras making his way through that crowded pub.
And it ends with him saying, I think I've lost my faith, Tom.
And yes, let's talk about Tom. This is Thomas Birmingham, or I guess I should say Father Thomas Birmingham, because he's an actual Jesuit priest. Folks, I am a little embarrassed to admit this. I was today years old when I learned that this guy was an actual priest.
I had no idea either, yeah.
I knew about Father O'Malley, who plays Father Dyer later in this film. I did not know about this guy, who is literally the Kenobi to Blatty's Luke, and we could argue is even more instrumental in this whole thing. From a certain point of view. Star Wars Minute. Go check it out.
Wait. Is that that's a episode 2 thing, or is that episode 3 thing or something like that?
Well, no, not episode 3. This would be like episode oh shit. The numbers, Lucas, why did you do this? 4, 5, 6. It would be 5 or 6. Oh my God, we're gonna get so much flack.
Wait.
Star Wars Minute, please
okay,
don't.
Wait. No. Not to get ourselves off the hook. What's this point of view thing? So the one I know is that in episode 3, Obi-Wan is fighting with Anakin, and he's like, the Jedis are the good guys, and then in a really maligned line. With that just completely on the nose and no subtext, Anakin says, from my point of view, it's the Jedi who are evil.
Oh no! I didn't even put that together. No.
And people are like, that's the first draft of that line. You know, people don't say that from my point of view. I'm good and you're evil. Of course, people think that. But
oh my God, this onion is getting deeper and deeper.
Uh-oh.
No, because the one that I was joking about was Sir Alec Guinness. Mm-hmm. He Luke confronts him later on. It's like, you said that that Vader killed my father, and Ben Kenobi says, well, it was true from a certain point of view.
He said that's what a dick hell thing to say.
Yeah. Wow. And I think at this point, Kenobi is already dead.
Right. He would be a ghost at that point, right?
So he's just an asshole ghost.
Well, if I come back as a ghost, I'm not gonna be nice about it. I mean, I spent my whole living time trying to be nice.
No, I have fucking plans. If I come back as a ghost, oh no.
Well, go ahead and email Lester at about any Star Wars corrections.
The Exorcist Minute at gmail.com, folks.
But I am completely uninterested in Star Wars corrections.
Can't say that.
So email Lester all you want.
We are under the umbrella of the Star Wars Minute.
That's fine. I admire Star Wars, and I think it's really great that people have fun and become better people because of Star Wars.
Yes.
I know too much about Star Wars. Like, there's just too much and there's no need to know anything else about Star Wars. I know more about Star Wars than the Bible, than the U.S. Constitution, than the periodic table of elements. And so even if I am woefully miseducated or undereducated compared to people who really care about Star Wars, it's too much stuff.
Says the person who didn't get my joke when I said from a certain point of view.
Right. Exactly. But Star Wars, there's too much Star Wars. I used to joke when Pokemon was really big that all my friends and I and my students, we could name more Pokemon than senators. And I'm sure that's correct. But then they keep adding Pokemon.
Oh, well, yeah.
So
well, they keep adding senators. I mean,
Right. There used to be 150 Pokemon and more to see. But now there's 700 Pokemon.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. You got to keep that franchise alive. It's like, can't just be on the shoulders of Pikachu.
Do you know that though, that more than Star Wars or more than anything, the highest grossing media franchise of all time is Pokemon?
Oh, really?
Yeah, because that's video games and movies and cards and dolls and merchandising. So all of that it has outsold Star Wars or anything. And actually, we think of Star Wars as being this merchandising mega thing, which it is. But at Disney, the higher selling consumer products division is not Star Wars. It is the Disney Princess line.
That can't be true.
Well,
Keenan,
you couldn't look it up.
That's not true. That's
It's impossible. See, I know that. Search your feelings. You know it to be true.
Wow. I'm learning so many things on this podcast today. See, folks, this is an educational podcast. I've said it before. I'll say it again. Dang. Wow. Okay. And by the way, Keenan, so I will for sure get those emails. But they will be directed towards you. I'm covering my own ass right here. Okay. Make it so. I just made a lot of people mad just then. Okay. But okay, let's get back to
The Exorcist. That's right.
The Exorcist, right? Keenan, have you heard about this movie, The Exorcist?
I hear it's pretty scary.
Yeah, it's pretty scary. So yeah, Star Wars. Yeah. So this is Father Thomas Birmingham, right? He is a Jesuit priest and a classical teacher and scholar. He was William Peter Blatty's teacher at Brooklyn Prep. And then later again at Georgetown University, where Blatty first heard about the strange case of Roland Doe or Robbie Doe, and he got the idea to write this novel. So Roland Doe, Robbie Doe, we've made allusions to it before. That's the actual little boy who purportedly was possessed by the devil. So that's the actual event that the book The Exorcist is based on.
And actual priests went to deal with this case. They seemed to be assigned by the Catholic Church, and then afterwards, the individual priest said that they believed it really was a case of possession, and the Catholic Church made no official statement on it.
Right.
And this is where we get the idea of the Ouija board, even.
Yes, right, yeah, because Robbie Doe was playing with the Ouija board. He was trying to contact, I think it was his Aunt Harriet, who was into that like whole spiritualist movement, I believe. We definitely need to have like a whole episode just on that case. Now, I couldn't confirm whether or not the seeds of the novel were planted in Father Birmingham's classroom, like he was Blatty got the idea there. I know Blatty heard about Roland Doe, Robbie Doe during a lecture, but I believe he heard about it from one of his other teachers. I think it was Father Gallagher. And by all accounts, Father Gallagher, he was great teacher, very animated. He used props in all his lessons, lots of fruit. Students in the front row, they had to wear these plastic ponchos because, he would smash these huge watermelons with a mallet. No. Okay. All right. I got my co-host to laugh, folks.
Did Gallagher ever? I mean, first of all, if you don't know the joke, go look that up.
Yeah, Gallagher. Gallagher was a comedian. Yeah.
Did Gallagher have any jokes besides mashing fruit?
Oh no, he was like. Wow, that was an aggressive no.
No, I really mean that. Was the whole thing about the fruit, or did he also tell jokes?
He also told jokes, and actually his jokes are jokes that I remember and that I use in my classroom specifically when I was an ESL teacher, that's English as a second language teacher, and I was working in Japan, I was working in Hong Kong, and even now, working in the United States and teaching Japanese, I would tell my students, like anytime they're having trouble with, I teach Japanese and German, and anytime they would have trouble with the grammar or something like that, or a pronunciation or whatever, I'd be like, listen, just be thankful that you already know probably one of the most batshit bonkers languages there is on the face of this earth, right? And talking about English, right? And Gallagher had this whole thing about like the ridiculousness and the absurdity of the English language that I just ate up as a kid. Like he had this whole thing, like he's like, okay, T-O-M-B tomb, C-O-M-B comb? No, comb. Okay, C-O-M-B comb, H-O-M-B home? No, H-O-M-E, right? Like he goes through this whole thing. It's very clever. Look it up. But then he's also like, he's the one who's like, you drive in a parkway, but you park in a driveway. Right?
Oh my God. I always thought that was you.
No, that wasn't me. I stole it.
You used to say it all the time, and I thought that was you.
I forgot.
That was a Lester Clark joke.
No, I stole it. I shamelessly stole it from Gallagher.
Lester and I were writing a sketch once we were writing something like a sitcom. It was like 30 Rock, where it was behind the scenes of a sketch troupe, and then we would see sketches. It was like 30 Rock, except we would actually show sketches.
Right.
And then 30 Rock came on, and we got, we were like, oh, we can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
We got distracted. But Lester's character said, why do you park in a driveway and drive in a parkway? And Ian's character said, Lester, why don't you shut the fuck up? Why do you never shut the fuck up?
Oh, good. Yeah. So all these years later, Keenan, I stole that. I stole that. I am a sinner. Forgive me, Father.
But I only know Gallagher as the guy who brings a watermelon out to the edge of the stage and smashes it with a giant Super Mario type mallet, and that's the joke. So
yeah, that's the so but like he had a whole thing just about like the ridiculousness of the English language, and it is batshit insane. And there are reasons for it. There's a reason there's a K in knife and night and all that stuff. But you would have to go into like the history of the development of the English, it's like Proto-Indo-European, all that stuff, which I love. I'm a nerd about, but my students are like, oh my God, he's going into that again. Right?
But the adaptability of English, I mean, I don't know if this is just, some colonialist, English rah-rah bullshit, but the adaptability of the English language is one of the reasons why it's so great for literature is how it's explained to me. I don't know that now that I'm saying out loud on public broadcasts, it's like, oh wait, that sounds like bullshit. That can't be right.
I have heard somewhere, and again, like it's hard to confirm these things. Well, no, it's not. I say it's hard to confirm. It's just lazy of me not to confirm this, but I have heard it said that because of colonialism and because England was the supervillain of the the imperialist age and trying to take over the world in a sense, the English is one of the most widely spoken languages in the world. It's the language of money. It's the lingua franca, even though lingua franca isn't English. What the hell is that about? Gallagher would have something to say about that.
But it's the language of the internet.
Right. The language of medicine, I think, of aviation. It is this like default language that you have a German businessman and a French businessman, and the German businessman doesn't speak French and this French businessman doesn't speak German, but likely they both can make their deal in English, right? Because both of them know that. And this is not to brag about English or anything like that.
We didn't do it.
No.
But in India, you're more likely to meet someone who speaks English than your own regional language, because the regional languages haven't permeated throughout India, but English has.
Right. Yeah. Right. So very interesting. God, we went off on like Star Wars.
Where the hell are we?
English.
Gallagher? Okay.
Gallagher. Oh, yes.
God, let's get started.
We got a lot of compelling things here.
But so Gallagher is the one who teaches him about Robbie Rowe potentially,
right?
But then Birmingham was with him at high school and college. That's very interesting.
Right. He was. I believe, going back to languages, he was Blatty's Latin teacher. In any case, Father Birmingham did suggest to Blatty that he use the subject of demonic possession for an oratory project. So he was instrumental in helping Blatty develop the idea for the book. Now, later, when the movie is getting made, Blatty approaches Father Birmingham to work on the film. At first, Father Birmingham is reluctant. He's a little bit worried that this is going to be another Rosemary's Baby, which I'm curious as to what Catholics thought of that movie, because we know, Keenan, like you pointed out earlier, Catholics were flocking to The Exorcist in droves, right? It was like being promoted by the church as sort of this important film. What did they think of Rosemary's Baby?
I'm not sure about that, because the Rosemary's Baby doesn't really deal with religion directly. It doesn't deal with Catholicism or Christianity directly. Mm-hmm. Our characters are somewhat secular or perhaps atheists, and then they encounter the devil or a witch's coven, depending on how you're looking at it. Yeah. So I don't know what they would have thought about that. That's a very interesting question, but you could see how that movie made Satan or Satanism kind of funny, scary, but also the characters who are the witches. We're not sure in the movie whether Rosemary is making it up or not in her head, whether she's paranoid or not. And there's witches who are summoning the devil and getting people impregnated, and the Rosemary's baby that she's pregnant with might be the devil's baby and that kind of thing. So I'm not really sure. We haven't talked about the influence that Catholics have on the movie industry and how it was formed in the 1920s. Do you know about the League of Decency, which is sometimes called the Catholic League of Decency?
That sounds like a superhero like cartoon show, like Saturday morning, but like very Catholic.
we can get it up. Yeah, so it was called the League of Decency. That's what they called themselves.
Meanwhile, at the League of Decency,
which is what, St. Peter's Basilica, or like I don't know if you get much better headquarters look than St. Peter's.
Yeah.
But it was called the League of Decency, and so you sometimes hear it called the Catholic League of Decency, just so historians can kind of put it in perspective. But they didn't call themselves that because Catholics don't say it. There's the League of Decency. We're not the Catholic League of Decency. And this was one of the big boycott groups in the 1920s. So as there became big scandals of Hollywood stars, this lady, Peg Entwistle, had she was an actor and she was at the end of her rope, and she went up and jumped off the H in the Hollywood sign. and killed herself in a spectacular fashion. And then there were other scandals like Fatty Arbuckle's manslaughter and rape trial. What else would there have been? Even the idea that like Rudolph Valentino's death by natural causes had caused so much outcry and outpouring of grief, like that was worrisome to the Catholic Church. It was like the movies have this draw that is if not evil, then at least indecent.
Right.
So they started to get a boycott group, and they were the biggest boycott group. And that spurned Hollywood to start self-censoring with this thing called the production code, which was basically what you could and could not do in movies. So that was directly because of Catholic boycotting and Catholic fears of a Catholic boycott. And back then, in the Sunday sermons, depending on which parish you were at, the Catholic Church had issued to the priests, they had issued recommendations of which movies people were allowed to see and not see. So I forget what order it is, but they would rate things as A, B, or C, and I forget whether A was the worst or A was the best. But it'd be like, oh, this weekend we have this movie from Paramount, and we have this movie from MGM, and so let's say Our Dancing Daughters, we give that a B. Be careful about that. Don't bring kids to that. It's not very good. And they would kind of keep track by studios and which studios had the dirtiest movies. Wow. And so you'd like with your I don't know where they would do it in the sermon, but there's stuff like, let's think of our brother Lester. He's sick right now, and let us pray for him. That sort of section. And then after that, they would say like, here are the movies you're not allowed to watch this week.
Wow. So you're telling me, Keenan, the whole all of this, this censorship movement, and we're getting all like the letter codes, and it's like R and PG and all that stuff. It was the Catholics the whole time.
Yeah, it might have come out. Without the Catholics, because there were Protestant newspapers that were critiquing Hollywood, but the big economic power came from this boycott from the Catholics. Yeah.
Well, that is really interesting.
Yep, that's where all of our movie censorship in America comes from.
The League of Decency. Wow, interesting. But meanwhile, on the Exorcist Minute. It's funny. It's like after all of that, then they promote The Exorcist.
Yeah, because I think so. Unlike Rosemary's Baby, right? It's just Satanism unchecked, and I don't want to spoil a movie that we're not talking about or anything, but it's let's just say like priests don't come in and save the day, whereas in The Exorcist they do, and it is about the power of Catholicism. Stepping in. The bureaucracy works in this case, and the structures that they have work.
Interesting. Okay, so then that this is a more like, we're going to scare them straight.
Yeah. And, Pauline Kael critiqued the movie because it was like propaganda for the Catholic Church. It was like, look, the Catholic Church, they are real superheroes, right? So we were making fun of like the League of Decency, and the Wonder Twins there and all of that. But this does show the Catholics as having real power that actually saves people, like physically, not just metaphorically or in the afterlife.
Right, right. And I remember that was kind of like pitched to Blatty's class in very much that same way, like when he first got the idea, because it was like the Roland Doe thing was happening like at the time, and the professor comes in and he's like, it's like, oh, you guys all laugh, but like evil is real, like just a few blocks away, like there's this boy in the grip of the devil. And it's interesting that like we use this tactic. It's like, no, the devil is real. Look at this, right? Mm-hmm. Like we need you to be so scared. But yeah, so eventually, yes, Father Birmingham, he does sign on with this, right, as a technical advisor, which I'm guessing means like he was there to help ensure the authenticity of like all the Catholic stuff and all the stuff that Jason Miller and Max von Sydow would be doing as priests. Like this is how an actual priest would do it.
Yeah, I'd love to hear what he was involved with, whether it was work with the actors or the set dressing or revisions to the script or any of that stuff. But yeah, I would imagine that would be very helpful.
Yeah, right. I also wonder, and we'll have to look into this, if he's the same priest who later blesses the set. Mm-hmm. And we're going to get into this in later minutes, but some stuff goes down on the actual set. And it's such a problem that they actually call in a real priest to bless the set before continuing filming. And I wonder if they were like, well, we got Father Birmingham and Father O'Malley here, or did they get like another priest to come in and do it? Like Friedkin being like, we need another priest. Honey, you got priests at home. You barely even use them. You're not getting another priest. But Mom.
Maybe if you're good for your birthday, you're getting a mom or a rabbi.
And then we'll go to Chuck E. Cheese. But yeah, he signs on as a technical advisor, and then he also gets to play this role as technically an advisor to our Father Karras here. So once again, this is the one third person we've seen in this film who's not a trained actor.
Well, hold on.
Right?
We have Birmingham. We have Tom here, Father Tom.
We have Vinnie Russell, who played the homeless man.
Oh, right. I hadn't thought of that. Father Dyer, right?
Well, Father. Oh, that's number 4. Well, so far we have 3, right? Because we have Vinnie Russell, homeless man. We have Vasiliki Malieros, who plays Karis's mother,
right?
And now we have Tom, right? And later on we're going to get Father O'Malley,
and then we have So again, like the ones with Mary and like the shots of Reagan that just hold on her, we have this really particularly long shot on not Jason Miller, the professional actor, but on Father Birmingham.
Yeah, and like to that. So I'm watching this guy's face and we get like a really good look at him. He's like right in there in the frame, really big. And his black priest clothes sort of like blend into the darkness of the bar. So it's literally just his big white face.
And the collar.
And the collar, yeah. With these piercing, probing eyes. And he is looking directly at Karis almost the whole time. And I think he takes his eyes off Karis like maybe once. And that's a thing that Michael Kahn talks about in his book, Acting in Film. Actors, filmmakers get that book. Keen and I, both.
Yeah, it's great. That's how I learned to think about acting.
Yeah, it's amazing. And Sir Michael Kahn also he did this workshop, which you can find on YouTube. Just Google on YouTube. Michael Kahn acting in film, and you'll see him teaching a bunch of acting students. And there's one particular moment where he demonstrates the difference between acting on stage, say, like with big gestures and big facial expressions, right? And acting for the camera, which is much more intimate, right? And he shows how small you can go in this class where someone else is doing their lines and the other person says something, some word, and Michael Cain's face doesn't move, but his eyes just flick away. And everyone in the class gasps. They're like, oh, right? Like that was the perfect reaction. It was so tiny, but it said so much. And so I'm watching this guy, Father Birmingham, and like I said, he is honed in on Karis in this way that makes me think like he knows what Damien is going to say already, right? Like maybe they've had this conversation before about reassignment, right? For Karis to get closer to his mother. But the way that Tom is looking at him, it's like he's searching, he's probing. He's like, okay, what is this really about, right? We've had this reassignment talk. What is really bothering you, Damien?
And just look at how Damien is just slumped into this booth. So when you're looking at Tom's coverage over Damien's shoulder, it looks like they're about equal in height. And Tom is really straight. He's like a scarecrow. He's like really tall. And then when we cut to the reverse, Damien is so small and so rumpled, and Tom is towering over him.
Yes. And also, by contrast, as much as Tom is looking at Karis keeps looking away from Tom, right? He can't meet his gaze. He can't meet his eyes. And then we have this shot. We're back on Tom over Karis's shoulder. And suddenly Karis is moving. He's nervous. He takes a drag of his cigarette and then he says, I need out. I'm unfit. And immediately he takes a drink, almost as if to like hide those words in between the smoke and the drink, right? Like, I'm gonna smoke and I'm gonna drop this bomb and then I'm gonna take a drink. Like he says his line into the drink, and he's about to drink. Like maybe Tom won't hear this, right? But Tom does hear, and it's here that his gaze breaks. He's been looking at Karis the whole time, but at the word unfit, he closes his eyes. And to me, this reads as like, oh God, here it comes. He knows Karis has lost his faith, and this is maybe the moment that he was dreading. He was hoping it wouldn't come to this, and that's why he was searching Karis's face so intently, and just this tiny little movement says so much. And again, it's not a professional actor, but I would say that this is professional acting. Yeah,
absolutely. I like in what's written here and how they're performing it. They're basically dodging what they both know is coming, right? So Tom is like, but you're a great psychiatrist, right? This is what this is.
You're the best we've got.
Yeah, you're the best we've got. We don't want to talk about what's really going on, right? Like, oh no, this is about you and your job, right? And they need you, and it almost like, if it doesn't really matter if you have faith or not because you're good at this, like let's not address that question.
Right. Yeah. And I want to read from the book here because I think Blatty paints a really nice picture of Karis's thoughts surrounding this scene, and it sort of talks about it in past tense, like he's remembering it after, like as he's doing other stuff. It's already happened, but I like what it says about Karis. So here we go. A reading from the Book of Blatty. The Maryland provincial had taken it up with him during the course of his annual inspection tour of Georgetown University, a function that closely paralleled that of an Army Inspector General in the granting of confidential hearings to those who had grievances or complaints. On the point of Damien Karras' mother, the provincial had nodded and expressed his sympathy, but the question of the priest's unfitness he had thought contradictory on its face. But Karras had pursued it. Well, it's more than psychiatry, Tom. You know that. Some of their problems come down to vocation, to the meaning of their lives. Hell, it isn't always sex that's involved, it's their faith. And I just can't cut it. Tom, it's too much. I need out. I'm having problems of my own. Doubts. Well, what thinking man doesn't, Damien? A harried man with many appointments, the provincial had not pressed him for the reasons of his doubt, for which Karras was grateful. He knew that his answers would have sounded insane. The need to rend food with the teeth and then defecate. My mother's 9 First Fridays. Stinking socks. Thalidomide babies. An item in the paper about a young altar boy waiting at a bus stop, set on by strangers, sprayed with kerosene, ignited. No. Too emotional. Vague. Existential. More rooted in logic was the silence of God. In the world there was evil, and much of the evil resulted from doubt, from an honest confusion among men of goodwill. Would a reasonable God refuse to end it? Not reveal himself? Not speak? Lord, give us a sign. The raising of Lazarus was dim in the distant past. No one now living had heard his laughter. Why not a sign? At various times the priest would have longed to live with Christ, to have seen, to have touched, to have probed his eyes. Oh my God, let me see you. Let me know. Come in dreams. The yearning consumed him.
Geez. I think I say that after each of your readings that are in the internal monologues.
Sheesh. But yeah, I think my favorite line in there is Tom's character when Karras says that he has doubts. Tom replies with, well, what thinking man doesn't, Damien? And I like that because it's I feel like that isn't said enough today. I feel like today, if you are in any way religious and you reveal that you have doubts, it's like a bad thing. You'd be ashamed to admit it. But I remember saying the same thing to my priest and him being like, yeah, that's normal. That's part of it. And that sort of made me feel better. I was like, oh, okay, these feelings are normal and even healthy. And I like that we have this character, Tom, the provincial, Mr. Army Inspector General, as Blatty puts it, saying, what thinking man doesn't have doubts? And that is the perfect thing that you say to Damien, because he is that kind of guy. He is that type of person who thinks, I can't have any doubts. I have to always be in this heart, mind, body, and soul, or I'm unfit. And here we have Tom trying to say no. That's humanly impossible.
I think this might also have to do with them being Jesuits as well, right? So we haven't quite talked about that, but the Jesuits have arms of their organization that are university, like the best Catholic universities are Jesuit universities. They have science labs, they have outreaches. Pope Francis is the first Jesuit to be the Pope, and he has degrees in science. He was a chemical engineer, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think there's also part of that about they are trying to thread the needle between faith and reason and have them coexist.
Interesting. Okay, yeah. I would honestly, before taking on this this podcast, I was a little bit and still am confused about the distinction between Catholic and Jesuit. Mm-hmm. That's something that and I guess that's something that we're going to learn more about as we go.
Yeah, it's an order within Catholicism that has different ideas and different mission statements for their priests and their missions. I said mission statement, then missions. I mean, they're institutions that they go and found.
Interesting. I do remember someone referring to them as God's Marines, and I don't know how accurate that is.
Yeah, that's funny. I don't know if that's us hearing some is that pro or anti the Jesuits? Is that somebody else don't worry about them. They're the Marines of the Catholic Church.
I wish I remember who said it, because then I would be able to tell. It's if this is a derogatory thing or if this is oh no, these are the guys who get their hands dirty or whatever. I don't know. But yeah, there you go. Jesuits, God's Marines. What thinking man doesn't have doubts? Mm-hmm. And by the way, folks, did you notice the name of the provincial in the book is Tom? And this is the first edition, right? So I have the first edition. I have the first edition. Everybody. Like, no. So I wonder if Blatty is writing this and he's thinking, yeah, I'm going to put my old teacher in this story.
Yeah, I mean, he put Healy Hall in it. And he put his, and then eventually when they're shooting the movie, it's a real bar near Georgetown.
Yeah, right. He's getting all his friends, like, this up-and-coming movie maker getting all his friends involved, right? Which, if that's true, like, we could maybe say that Tom was cast before Jason Miller, before Ellen Burstyn, before Linda Blair, right? Yeah. He was the OG, as the kids say. Yeah. He's the GOAT, which I did not understand this at first. Have you heard of this? The GOAT, right?
Yes, I do know.
I was watching this scene. I was watching a scene in Clue on YouTube with Madeline Kahn. And, the flames on the side of my face, heaving breaths. Right. And I looked into the comments, and someone had put Madeline Kahn is the GOAT, like in all caps. And I was like, how fucking dare you?
Yeah, that was my first response when I saw that. Yeah.
Like, I was about to reply, and then I see that it has like all these likes, and I'm like, hang on, is this me being an old man? And it's like, and sure enough, right, Keenan, right, GOAT. And is an acronym for greatest of all time, right? And I was like, okay, you are correct. Madeline Kahn is indeed the GOAT. God, this feels so weird to say still, though.
Yeah, there's on Adam McKay's Don't Look Up. Meryl Streep had a bunch of scenes with Jonah Hill, who plays her son, and they had a lot of scenes together with Jennifer Lawrence, and they would, in between shooting times, they'd call her the GOAT. They'd say, Meryl, you are the GOAT. These are two millennials saying this, like, Meryl, you're the GOAT. And she didn't understand what they were saying, and then she thinks it means old goat, right?
Right.
Like, you're an old goat.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't until after they were shooting, I think, when she's like, oh, they're saying that's a compliment.
Yeah.
And then, this scene is interesting because in the script, we're in this period of our movie where things are changed in the ordering from the book to the screenplay to the movie. It's kind of all over the place, right? So Blatty has rewritten the book into a completely different order of scenes, and then somewhere in the screenplay to film adaptation, this could happen in post-production even. They've changed the order of the scene. So there's nothing really telling us when we watch the scene when it's happening. And in the screenplay, it's on minute 15, as opposed to in the movie, we're now at what, minute 27.
Yes, minute 27.
So that would mean that, at least at some point, the plan was that we heard this scene first, and then we meet Mary, and we see Father Damien going through all of this. So we have him expressing it in the abstract to us, and maybe it's a surprise to us that we see this priest go, I think I've lost my faith. And then the sequence in the screenplay is then he goes to the subway station and doesn't give the money to the man, and then he goes to Mary's house and he tells her he wants to put her in a home, and it's almost impossible to think about, like, how, because the movie works so well, do a thought experiment about what if that was true, what if we had that. So what would that be if, like, we see the first we see of this guy, basically he's at the movie set, he smiles, and then we hear somebody saying, I can't do it anymore, right, when Ellen Burstyn's walking by. And then we get this scene. But here in the actual movie, it's after we've seen what he's going through with his mother and this deep conflicting, these thoughts, being both son and caretaker to his mother. He's both a scientist and a priest. And then we get this line. And in the movie, it's perfect. So I don't know how that would even, work otherwise.
Yeah. I actually, I was going to ask you, but it sounds pretty clear that, like, you and me, like, we both like this order, the order that it is in the final cut.
Yeah, there's something about that, about being in his shoes for quite some time before he admits to himself what the problem is. So we've seen the problem.
Yes.
That he is ministering and does not believe it. And then when we have him confess it, it's like a relief to us. It's still shocking. And our minute ends with a really harsh cut, right? He just says, I think I've lost my faith, Tom. And then we cut very harshly to the next scene, which is really great. We don't get any of Karis thinking after that. We don't get any of Tom's reaction. That's just it. The action of saying it is enough.
Yeah. And Tom's reaction, we got enough of that, like, right before he made the admission to kind of, like, tell us it's like he knows what's coming next. Right. Wow.
Oh, let me just say one more thing about that relationship. Because in some ways, Tom is acting as the psychiatrist to the psychiatrist here.
Oh, yeah.
Which is really interesting. So So his answers might be seen as unhelpful, but they're the typical of a trained psychiatrist or trained therapist, that it's not your job necessarily to provide solutions when you're not being asked for solutions. Your job is to mirror back what the person is saying, right? So things like, you seem upset to me about that. That seems to upset you. That's basically what Tom is doing. And then that's to help Damien come to his own conclusions, right? So, of course, it feels like a confession scene because we have priests in the dark, right? But it's more like a therapy scene. And I'm always interested in that, like, you know, how doctors deal with other doctors when they're the patient. And, how, you know, some of the best scenes in The Sopranos come later on when Dr. Melfi, who has been Tony Soprano's therapist, then has her own therapist, who's played by Peter Bogdanovich, who's the director of The Last Picture Show, right? That, like, those are really interesting scenes where we see her in a new light and see what it's like to be ministered to.
Oh, I love that. Like, so many different layers to this scene now. The fact that, Karras's job within the church is he is a psychiatrist, right? He helps other priests with their problems. And the fact that we have this scene could be interpreted as a confession, but also could be interpreted as a therapy session. That is really cool.
Yeah, and we put it in a pub, so it's like, oh, we're just friends, we're just hanging out, etc. And then when we get them in the booth, look, it looks like a confessional, just so dark and dim and all of this. But what's really happening is more of a therapy time.
Oh, I love that. Huh. All right, Keenan, is there anything else for this minute?
I think we got a lot out of it.
Okay. So Keenan, are you thinking what I'm thinking?
I think I am, Lester.
Folks, until next time.
The power of Madeline Kahn compels you. Flames on the side of my face, breathing, breathless thought heaving. Well, that was his job. He was an illusionist.
And he never came back.
Well, he wasn't a very good illusionist.